everyone is staying dry. This is our third installment of Understanding the Piedmont Triad Food System. This is a virtual engagement meeting in lieu of COVID-19, and we're so happy that you could join us today. My name is Chanel Nestor, and I'm the Community Outreach Manager for Carolina Creative Works, the contractor with the Piedmont Triad Regional Food Council that will be analyzing our food system of the Piedmont Triad. Next slide, please. Awesome. All right, so we have some wonderful people joining us for this meeting this evening. Jennifer and Kana, if you'll introduce yourselves. Jennifer first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bedrosian, and I am the Food Systems Coordinator at Piedmont Triad Regional Council. I started my position this last January, and prior to this, I've worked in different aspects of the food system, from being an entrepreneur to farming, being a consumer, obviously, and working in food education. This led me, so I have a deep interest in food systems, and this led me to this position. And I'm really driven by the idea that food connects us to each other and to the land. And I'm here because I want to be a part of helping to build a better food system. In my role as Food Systems Coordinator, I help foster collaboration between council members and our stakeholders, and also direct activities for the Food Council, and have had some evolving responsibilities due to COVID, as providing resources and connecting with a lot of members in our community in response to COVID, acting as a resource and providing resources to within the food system and to farms and farmers markets.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Kana?
Hi. I'm Kana Miller, and I'm one of the nutrition educators at Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina, which is based in Winston-Salem. And as a nutrition educator for the food bank, I'm a part of our nutrition services team, which acts as a resource for our partner agency network across our 18-county service area. And the nutrition services team is just here to be a resource on any and all things nutrition related. So we do cooking classes, we offer food demonstrations and tastings, workshops. We work with our food pantries to become healthier food pantries if they're interested in that, and share lots of nutrition education information. So we kind of do a lot of different things, just working with our partner agency network and community partners. And I also help run a teaching garden that's on site at the food bank, and we're working on working with some of our partners that also have gardens to be another resource in that realm as well. And with the council, I'm kind of I'm wearing multiple hats of representing the food bank nutrition perspective, but also just in general, am here because I've done a lot of food access, food education work over the years, and also have a small farm in Louisville with my partner, and just love food, the full cycle of food, from growing, cooking, eating, sharing, all of it I love, and have come into this work because it's difficult for me to ignore injustices in the food system, and this just motivates me to continue to pursue my work in equity in my community and in our food system.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kana. And before we introduce this project, we would love for you all that are joining us via the internet to share where you're joining us from. So the county that you represent, and feel free to also share why you're interested in this conversation and participating in the survey as well. So please interact with us. We look forward to reading your comments as well. So if we'll get started. Awesome. Jennifer, if you could please introduce the project.
Yes, so this project we're really excited about. We're working with this wonderful team from Carolina Creative Works and Community Food Lab. and using this project to really take a look at a comprehensive look at our regional food system. And the council wanted to, in approaching this assessment, really wanted to look at this centered on building equity in the 12 counties in the Triad region. If you're not familiar with all of those 12 counties, they're going to be on the next slide. You can find out more information. There's a web link at the bottom of the page there, so you can find out more information if you're interested on the work of the Food Council and meet our members and learn some more information. All of this work is made possible by a grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina Foundation. So we're incredibly grateful to them for their dedication to building healthier communities. And that's what supports this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Kana, with you being a representative of our Piedmont Triad Regional Food Council, we'd love for you to share a little bit more about the council and your experience as well.
Of course. So I joined the council a year ago. And as I said, I was interested in joining just to kind of continue the food systems work that I've done over the years, and was interested in both what I thought I could bring from the food bank perspective, as I mentioned, and from working in nutrition, but then also just my own personal experience with having a small farm and other work that I've done. And I was particularly interested in this council because at the food bank, I am the nutrition educator for a portion of our service area. So I represent Forsyth, Guilford, Randolph, Rockingham, Caswell, and Alamance counties. And those are all a part of the Piedmont Triad region. So I was also interested in just being able to further both gain insight on what kind of the needs and resources are in those counties, but also kind of listen in and better just be a resource for those communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure that everyone knows the counties that are served through the council as well. So we have Alamance, Caswell, Davidson, Davie, Forsyth, Guilford, Montgomery, Randolph, Rockingham, Stokes, Surrey, and Yadkin. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So this is our wonderful team with Carolina Creative Works. Myself, again, Chanel Nestor, Outreach and Engagement Manager. We also have Emily Edmonds, Founder and Principal Investigator, Josh Maduri, Principal Consultant, Ryan Jones, Community Development Research Manager, and Holly Haygood, Research Coordinator. All right, and we also have 3 wonderful apprentices from North Carolina A&T State University. I would love for you all to introduce yourselves as well. So Zenithia, if you'll go first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zenithia Ship, and I recently graduated with my Bachelor's of Science degree in Agriculture and Environmental Science Systems with a concentration in urban community horticulture. And I am on this team to help expand the knowledge of the food system and to show the community what we need to do to better improve it. I myself am involved in the food system. I'm running a community garden right now. So I'm glad to have been able to get people together and just teach them about growing food.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Enoch?
Hello, everybody. My name is Enoch, and I'm also really happy to be part of this group. I have a background in the food system, and I've helped in different aspects of the food system, and hoping to cover up most of the different gaps that exist in this system. Thank you.
Thank you. Nala?
Love and light, everyone. I am Nala Muhammad, and I am also a recent grad of North Carolina A&T with a BS in Agriculture and Environmental Systems and a concentration in Environmental Science. And I am also a urban teaching program intern for Out of the Garden Project, as well as a regular volunteer with the City of Greensboro, maintaining hydroponic towers. And the reason I thought it was vital to be a part of this project because I truly believe in the power of cultivating land well as just the general benefit of being exposed to nutritional foods and the mental as well as physical wealth that it can bring to communities. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nala. We're so happy to have all of you a part of this team. All right, and next we'd like to introduce Emily Edmonds, and she'll be sharing a bit more about the goals of this project. Emily?
Thank you, Chanel. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. This assessment is really neat because it's one of the first ones in the country that's done with such a large region, with such a diversity of rural and urban spaces. It's also a really cool project because Piedmont Triad has chosen to look at both food access and equity in how we get access to the food that is healthy, that we enjoy eating, that suits our family's needs, and to look at things like production and supply chains to make sure that we have a robust agricultural economy around the region, and figuring out what those needs look like in every Triad community is what we're setting out to do with this project. So we decided to move ahead with this during COVID-19, even though these meetings are obviously not as much fun for any of us. We would love to be in person with you, doing these mapping exercises, talking to you and meeting you one-on-one. And we still hope to be able to do that, but we really feel like it's important to continue to move this project forward, particularly because now everyone can start to see some of the inequities and gaps in the food system that this project set out to address. So we're going to take all of this work, we're going to continue to engage with communities in the Triad throughout the summer, and then we're going to do our analysis in the fall and be able to share these results with you and with the food councils in the region, with local governments in the region, and try to get some real momentum moving behind some of these projects to address the things that we're learning throughout our work. So we're very grateful to have you all here and looking forward to getting to know you tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. I know many of us are so interested in how we're going to go about this process if you haven't engaged in the survey yet. So we have Josh Midori, who is our IT tech guy, and he'll be showing you how to navigate this platform and how it works a bit more. And I also want to add, if you're joining us via the phone, please feel free to send us an email. You'll see the email address down at the bottom, community@carolinacreators.com, with any of your comments or questions. We're available to answer those Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Thank you. Josh.
Thanks, Chanel. Yeah, so I'm going to start with actually this slide that you see right in front of you. It's going to look slightly different depending on which device you're joining us with. If you're on a mobile phone, the comment section will be below the video that you're looking at right now. And then if you're on a desktop, I'll demonstrate that in just a second. Let me switch over. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. So on normal laptops or computers or what have you, you'll have this comment section right here on the right-hand side. Just feel free to put in your information here, comments, and then you'll use this little blue comment button to post those. And you can reply to comments. So if you see someone that you can answer or add to the discussion, please feel free to reply to them as well. That's it, Chanel. We'll demonstrate the survey in a little bit.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Okay, we need to pull up there we go. Awesome. Next slide. So within this conversation, we're going to be discussing a few different things. Number one, we're going to be discussing equity and what that means and how that's important as we assess our regional food system. We'll be going over some key definitions, and we just want to make sure that there's a shared knowledge between ourselves and our community, making sure that everyone understands certain terminology that we'll be using along the way. Number 3 will be you'll have a chance to complete the survey and learn a little bit more about how to complete it and what our information will be used for. Also, we'll be engaging in a mapping exercise, which is my favorite part of this whole process. You'll be able to identify places within the food system that you participate in within your community, whether that's a grocery store, community garden, if there's a certain food access program that exists in your community, you'll be able to identify that within mapping software. And lastly, number 5, questions. We want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions and concerns about this process and about this assessment. So we'll definitely have a lot of time for you all to get your questions answered. Okay, so first off, I mentioned the terminology equity. Okay, so this was a huge piece from our regional food council that they wanted to see covered. They wanted to make sure that as we are completing this assessment, we are focusing on equity. Equity means just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. Within this assessment process, we want to make sure that we have a lot of voices participating within this conversation so that no table is left unturned, making sure that everyone is included so that we can create change that's long-lasting, resilient, and sustainable. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on food inequity. Food inequity is conditions that mean all people do not have the same opportunity to grow and consume healthy, affordable food that they and their families enjoy eating. So that is a huge issue for us. We want to make sure that we're exposing any food inequity that exists so that in the future we can plan on how we can create change in the community. Next slide. All right, a few different facts that we want to just make sure you all know and understand why this is so important. Here you'll see listed the food insecurity rates for all 12 of our counties in the region, as well as the childhood food insecurity rates. In 2017, it was found that 1 in 5 children within our region is food insecure, which means that they could be facing hunger, malnutrition, and have low access to healthy and affordable food. So we definitely want to see this change within our community. We're seeing very high rates that we want to see changed in the future. Next slide, please. All right, so a few different questions that we want to start off with, discussion questions that we love for you all to engage with around equity. We want to know from you all, in your county or community, what's the most important equity issue you see in the food system? Do you think that COVID-19 crisis has changed these issues? How? In your county, what's the biggest challenge facing farmers, food businesses, or consumers? So if you could please engage with your comment box and try to figure out some answers to these questions and identify some change within your community that you would love to see happen. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so Josh Midori will be joining us once again to help you all understand how to take the survey and some key things that you'll need to know to make sure that you're successfully completing the survey.
Hello again. So just below the video that you're watching in the comments box, where hopefully you guys are able to share your thoughts on some of those discussion questions, if you would just scroll down till you see this heading that says Regional Food System Assessment, and you'll see some steps up here that'll walk you through the survey. Doesn't take very long, 5 to 6 minutes. You should be able to go through, and at this food system role step, it'll actually kind of customize the survey based on what role you play within the food system. So this is an incredibly important aspect for us to understand how you interact with your community and how the food system issues that you face. So if you just click this green continue button at the bottom, it will start stepping you through the survey and answer the questions for your specific situation. And then, as I mentioned, there will be kind of a customized piece for you. So as you answer the questions, there'll be a green continue at the bottom, and that's fairly simple. If you do have anything that you want to share outside of just the question, some of the questions actually have a comment box below them. So you can add more context or things that may be different or the question doesn't address underneath each of the, well, most of the questions actually have this enabled unless it's some sort of demographic thing. So that's pretty much it, Chanel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to do a few things while you all complete the survey. Josh let you all know where to find that survey. We have a few other definitions that we want to cover, and we'll have our apprentices join us once again to quickly cover these different definitions. Nala.
Yes, thank you so much, Chanel. As we know, this is a very important conversation that we are a part of. And like Chanel previously mentioned, it's important that we acknowledge and define those things within the food system that we need to refer to. So when referring for food for families, we use terminology such as food hardship, food desert, food insecurity, as well as food access. Now, the common denominator between these is that they all refer to things that hinder the progressiveness of a food system within a community. So say, for instance, we live in a food desert, which is a geographic area in which it is difficult to find nutritious as well as affordable foods. And within an urban area that is within any given point that there isn't a grocer within 0.5 miles, and then within rural areas, it's within 10 miles of any given point within that neighborhood. Now, for the other three, they sort of highlight the economic imbalances within communities that would make it hard for families to access affordable foods. Next slide, please. Now, these families make up a much bigger unit, which is called our community. So when referring to food within our communities, we use terminology such as community gardens, urban gardens, as well as micro farming and micro gardening. Now, as previously mentioned, we do have in Greensboro ourselves a beautifully facilitated garden, the Beloved Garden, which is a community garden by Zenithia, who is one of the apprentices, where the people in the community will be able to invest in plots of land themselves and cultivate and create food. Now, that not only creates physical food, but it also enables economic circulation within that community itself. Now, with urban gardening, that is typically larger areas and activities of gardening. So that is taking a mason jar instead of a classic flower pot that you may have, but it's all about using your resources in this urban community to create food for yourself. Now, micro farming as well as micro gardening is when you're taking larger plots of land and larger plots of area that may have just gone to waste within the community, but turning it into something beautiful and having other people as well invest in this creation of cultivation. So I'm referring to food and communities. These are the terminologies that we use. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nala. Zenithia, if you'll continue.
Okay, so we are going to talk about the food chain. So the food chain is big and it has several different processes to it in order to get your food from farm to the kitchen table. So first is production. Production basically involves preparing the soil, planting the seed or seedlings, and then maintaining those crops. And these things can vary whether you're a small farmer or a large farmer, and also what you're planting. The next step is harvesting. Harvesting happens once your produce is mature. So some farmers have the luxury of being able to have machines like tractors to get this produce for them in a much faster way, while others have to physically do these things. And the next step is processing. So processing involves keeping the produce fresh and allowing the produce to have a longer shelf life. And also other things come in the factor of processing, like, making canned goods, sauces, and other things, which some things are transported first before they're even processing those things. Next is packaging. Packaging is important because this produce needs to be secure and safe to move on to be transported into, various places like the farmers markets and grocery stores.
Awesome. Thank you, Zenithia. And Enoch, if you'll finish our last slide. Thank you.
Thank you. So after all those other definitions are carried out in the food process, the farmer has to also think about transportation. The food system also has to think about transportation and look at generally how is the food moved, normally through first line handlers or primary processors who aggregate those food, store it, and then provide the initial processing of commodities, and then send it to probably retailers like Walmart and other grocery stores and farmers markets. And also you have, sometimes people go to the farm to actually grab the produce that they need, or maybe to the farmer's market where the farmer supplies. So there's some kind of intermediary relationship there where they meet at some place. So that whole system of moving the food constitutes the transporting of the food in the system. Then next comes the issue of marketing, where farmers have to tell people how the food is produced and how do I get the information out? How do other players in the food industry get the information about food out? So sometimes farmers can use lists. They can go to events, do sales, have recipes through social media, Facebook, make YouTube channels about different kinds of produce and how they can be transformed into finished goods, or simply by word of mouth. Also, farmers can sell direct to consumers. They can also sell to farmers markets and carry out their marketing through these other platforms. So thinking about some of the issues around marketing while going through the survey helps to bring out some of the gaps that need to be filled in that process. Then the next definition to look out for is the food supply chain. What is the supply chain? So if you think about how the farmer has to move the food, or the food system has to move to reach whoever is the consumer, you think about the farmer gets the seed, the farmer plants the seed, someone supplies the farm inputs like tractors and other implements, and then the produce is harvested, and then you take the produce, you take them to big markets like maybe the farmers markets, Walmart, other grocery stores, convenience shops, and co-ops. And then a third party or the farmer might decide that, okay, we can do more with the food. We can make maybe jam with it. We can make some more, maybe some cakes with it, process it into different forms, maybe canned foods, some forms for the consumer to have access to. So those transformations, the system of moving the food and getting it to the consumer, that entire process constitutes the food supply chain. Then finally comes the food assets. And with food assets, thinking about it as the benefits or the key structures that exist in the food system that allow food to be moved and food to get to who needs it. And structures such as co-ops, structures such as farmers markets, the retail stores, and grocery places are very important aspects of the food system assets. So as we look through the survey, some of the issues around these are the things we would like to address. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Enoch. So next, we will be engaging in the mapping process of this survey. And before we go into that, I want to recognize the fact that we do have a lag. So it's like 15 to 30 seconds, depending on where you are, between what we say and you all receiving it. So if you have any problems with our audio, please let us know. because we are doing this live on YouTube. So there is a bit of lag and connection issues in that way. All right. So once we begin this mapping software, I want Josh Maduri to go into, how to complete this. Some questions that I want you all to keep in mind are, do you buy food from anywhere else other than a commercial grocery store? Are there some hometown grocery stores in your community that you buy your food from? Do you know of any programs in your community that serve people in need with food? And where are those programs located within your community? Are there any urban gardens or school gardens, community gardens, or educational programs that you like to share as well? Not only are you sharing the location, but you're also applying a comment about what that program is. So please go into as much detail as you possibly can. Josh?
Thanks, Janelle. So first off, let me switch to sharing my screen. To the right of the video or below, you should see the link that was just put in the comments section. So if you would just copy over this link right here, and you can open a new tab or however you choose to do that, but essentially just paste that in. Oops. Paste that link in, and then you can go to the mapping exercise and be able to add your own points. So once you're there, there is some instructions on the page. So if you forget what I'm about to tell you, you can go ahead and read some of that information if you need to. But the first thing you want to do to make it easier on yourself is click on this My Location button. All that does, and the first time you do it, you're going to probably get prompted to say allow to use your location. That actually is not, any of your actual location information is not transferred to us. That's simply just moving the map to roughly where you are located to make identifying things in your area easier. So once you click allow, it'll move the map to your general location, and then you can click on add a point whenever you navigate around. To add in something that is non-traditional that would give us context for your community, things that we wouldn't be aware of normally, or that wouldn't be on kind of the traditional grocery store lists or services. You may need to use the zoom in and out function just to navigate around. The other thing that you can do, if you know where the address of where that is located, you can also use this magnifying glass in the kind of top right-hand corner area of the map. And with that, you can then just search by address, and it'll immediately take you to that place that you just searched for. Once you're there, or you've scrolled around the map until find where that location is, then you'll go down to this add point, either at the bottom or in the top right-hand corner. And then you'll get a little crosshairs to place a point on the map. Once you do that, if you would just please give us the name of the store or location or service that you're pointing out here, and a little bit of context on what it is and what you either how you access it or what resource it is for your community. And then please make sure you post this, use this button, post with comment, that we have a way we have some understanding of what that service or store is. If that is too daunting for you, or you're having access issues, feel free to also use this little comment section below the map. Right below the map, it says share your thoughts and ideas. There's a box there, and that would be an alternative to going through the process of placing a pin. You could just simply type in there what the service or store is, and a little bit of information about that. And if you have any location information, that would be super helpful. And we will go through and add that point to the map at a later date. And then you can just post that comment with a little comment button. So whatever is your preference or easiest for you, it'll just be super helpful for us to get a better understanding of your community and local food system. That's it, Chanel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we look forward to seeing all of the points that you place on the map, identifying food access points within your community. So while you all are engaging in that part of the process, we want to bring back our council member, Kana, and our food system coordinator, Jennifer, as well, to help us with some discussions. We do have a few other individuals that work in our community around food as well. So we look forward to all of the comments that you all have. So Kana and Jennifer, want to make sure you're there.
Hello.
I'm here.
Awesome, yay. All right, Kana, I'll start with you. In your county or community, what's the most important equity issue you see in the food system? I know you do a lot of work around the region in multiple counties, so we'd love to hear your point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Chanel. So I live here in Forsyth County, and as I mentioned, since the food bank is based in Winston-Salem, that's kind of my home base work-wise when I'm not out traveling into other counties. So I'll kind of just maybe speak to Forsyth County. I think I can probably speak to that best. And to me, I think the most important equity issue in the food system here is the racial disparities across the county. I kind of see them having an effect in all kinds of arenas. So in access to food, in growing food, in being able to sell that food. From my perspective, it seems like the racial disparity seems to be consistent through all of those different avenues within the food system. And specifically in the Winston area, the kind of large area east of Winston that gets referred to often as East Winston, but encompasses a lot of different neighborhoods and communities east of downtown, is just historically under-resourced and underrepresented in lots of different areas. And I think that's one area where you kind of see a lot of these racial and wealth disparities showing up a lot in all avenues of the food system.
Awesome, thank you, Kana. Jennifer, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think it's great to hear that perspective in Forsyth. And yeah, to me, just hearing conversations across counties, I think it really just highlights that access piece for all people. I think that, yeah, access to whether it's growing food, buying food, cooking food, that seems, in transportation, how you get to those places. I mean, that seems prevalent across all counties. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have two other questions. Do you think the COVID-19 crisis has changed these issues, and how? Jennifer, if you want to lead that one.
Sure. Yeah, just kind of following up to what I was saying on the last question. I do think that it has changed at some. I think what it has done is really highlighted and kind of amplified some of the things that were already occurring. And it really is important for why we're continuing this work and for building a better system moving forward. I guess a few of the ways, I talked about this in the last meeting as well, but a few of the key things that I've noticed that continue to come up in relation to this crisis are for sure lost sales and loss of income, whether that's, to farmers selling to restaurants, farmers markets, as they're navigating opening back up, direct to consumer sales and trying to navigate how to pivot in that in this situation, from having that face-to-face connection at a farmer's market to moving to online sales. And that also brings to light some of the issues around people and communities that don't have internet access, and transportation. So we fully realize that there are people that aren't being reached because they maybe don't have a good internet connection in their community and couldn't pivot to quickly turn to online sales, or aren't able to access those places in the ways that, so many ways that we communicate today is online. And a lot of information is being disseminated in that way that some people don't have that access to. So those are some key things that have continued to surface in my conversations.
Chanel, we have a question from the audience.
Thank you, Ryan.
This one's COVID related, so either Jennifer or Kana. But have you heard of any particular food businesses that have been impacted significantly by COVID? There's a lot of news about meat processors. Do you have any information on what's happening there?
I can speak a little bit about that. We actually have a food council member who is the owner of a meat processing facility, and it's a small operation, and they are experiencing a lot of that owner has had to move onto the production line because they're experiencing a lot of interest in that and are booked through the end of the year. So they've really had to increase capacity and try to address this. At the same time, I think there are, we're hearing nationally about a lot of meat processing facilities that have been larger scale meat processing facilities that have been closed down due to illness, and that is having big impacts on number one, people's health, and the safety precautions, but also farmers who want to take their meat to process and aren't able to do that. So we are seeing it all around. I don't know if the person on the call has any direct experience with that, but I'd love to hear if anyone else has any comments around that or has experienced a difficult time accessing meat. I know a lot of places are selling out quickly and it's moved off the shelves. And
thank you.
Hey, this is Emily. I'll just say anecdotally, in the initial survey responses we've been getting, we have over 100 responses now, and it looks like about 80% of them mention meat as something that they're having trouble accessing or being able to purchase enough of, particularly for families of more than two. So the limits at the grocery store that folks have put in place, I think are people are starting to feel the impact of that for sure.
I can also add, I don't know all of the specifics off the top of my head, so I will speak a little bit vaguely, but I do remember hearing a few weeks ago of a local dairy creamery in Guilford County that I think was definitely being affected, and they were having to dump significant gallons of their dairy product, I think just with issues related to their normal markets and buyers not being as available as they were prior to all of this. So just another one of those examples of how it's affecting our local food businesses.
All right. And Ryan, do we have any more questions or comments?
None at the moment.
All right. No, thank you, thank you. And while we are kind of discussing the survey, so far we've had over 1,000 views of this survey. We've had 98 participants, and that's growing, that have taken the survey. 906 responses, 59 comments, and 36 subscribers to this survey. So we want to keep you all updated on everything that's going on, and keep you all involved in the process. So when you complete the survey, you're also going to get updated as more progress is made with the assessment. All right, we'll go to slide 19. All right, final discussion. What are your thoughts about what you've heard from our panelists today? Any questions? And we want to make sure that, once again, if you've entered your email, that we keep you updated on the status of this project. So we're going to give you a little bit of time to add any questions or comments that you all have currently. All right, and while we give our community a few moments to input their questions or comments, Kana, I'd like to ask you a question. Within Forsyth County, what's the biggest challenge facing farmers, food businesses, or consumers that you've seen?
So again, from my perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges, well, maybe kind of two, I think, that kind of pop into mind. One just being in general land access, whether that's being able to grow food, even if it's an urban farm, so a smaller piece of land, to having larger swaths of land. I think land access is an issue. And for food businesses, I know I've been a part of a lot of conversations about access to commercial kitchen spaces to be able to produce your value-added product or food product, or grow your business. That seems to be a big issue here that I will say I think is gaining some traction. I definitely think there's work happening around it, but it still is an issue. And then just in general, I would say access to markets, I think, is a big issue here, and markets being both farmers markets, but also just markets in general, having a customer base. I know, at least personally, my partner and I found that to be a bit of an issue for us with our very small farm in Louisville. But it just seems that there are places to sell food, but it is limited, kind of given the population here in the county and the interest in supporting local food. So limited availability of places to sell food. I think it makes for a highly competitive environment. And that can sometimes act as a barrier. Competition's always a good thing, but I've kind of seen it as maybe with the amount of people interested in whether it's being a farmer growing food, having a food business, it's highly competitive. Just to where it can be kind of an access issue. And for customers as well, I think there are some great places to source food, but it is sort of limited to certain areas, and what's available can be a bit limited sometimes.
We have
All
a
right.
question from the comment section. Either panelist, do either of you know what the next steps certain counties are adopting as we move forward to help address already identified equity issues?
That's a great question. And I think it's one of the things that we're hoping that we learn from this survey. I think in response to the pandemic, a lot of people are doing some really amazing work and have had to pivot and shift very quickly to accommodate an emergency need. And I'm incredibly inspired by a lot of the conversations I've been having and the way that our communities have shifted to get masks for safety into the community, to educate people, to move food from farmers to food banks. People going to pick things up in their own cars and driving it there, and school cafeteria workers and school buses and people transporting that food. And I think the next steps are certainly, where do we go from here as we kind of exit this emergency response and start to move into these next phases of how can we, and that's why this survey is so important, to get this information from people. And it's one of the reasons why the Food Council is doing this work, and we want to help compile this information to help in that response of what to do next. One of the things that I think is really interesting to think about is, given that this sort of direct to consumer, just for example, in the farmers markets, kind of fell apart a little bit with farmers markets closing, and some farmers who didn't have online access or an online store set up all of a sudden lost their customer base. And one of the things that's kind of been in my mind is, how do we move forward from that? Are there ways for that model may shift in more of a regional approach, in collaboration, in these different groups of people, and how do we look at that as a region, which is, again, why I think this work is so important, and we're so excited about the input from people on this survey.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, kind of going off of what Jennifer said, into the previous question about how the COVID-19 crisis has changed some of these issues. Jennifer mentioned this earlier, but I definitely think that this pandemic, at least here locally in this region, has not necessarily changed equity issues, but I think has maybe just exacerbated pre-existing ones. But with that, and kind of to this question, I think while there have been a lot of issues that have been exacerbated or had a spotlight shown on them, I've also seen a lot of resiliency within my own communities and across the region. It's been amazing to just kind of see, as Jennifer mentioned, the quick responses that people have had, and just the amazing amount of collaboration and just general resiliency of being able to continue doing this work and figuring out solutions on the fly, and kind of figuring out how to get from A to B, get resources from one side to the other, has been really amazing. And I don't have a response specifically about a specific county, but I do think that we're going to see, I'm hoping that we'll see a lot of local response and people making changes, adapting to this on a much more local level. Because as we've seen with the pandemic, it's affecting all of us, but it's also affecting all of us differently. And so I think our best response will be figuring out what is best for our counties, for our communities, and responding locally. And I've seen that happening already. So I'm inspired that it'll continue to happen.
Thank you. And on the continuation, we have two more questions. Kana, one more for you, I guess. What are ways community members can help hunger relief efforts at the food bank? And the second being, what are the access plans moving into the summer months?
For the second question, is that access specifically to food banks first?
I believe so. So we'll go, or just hunger relief.
Okay. So the food bank, it has been in I guess just the the way we have been affected as a food bank from this pandemic and the response that we've seen, we have already seen an incredible response from the community in supporting us. It has been truly amazing and completely unprecedented. And there are a few ways we actually are, for those who are able and interested, we are still taking volunteers and can continue. Our need for volunteers is still pretty high. Even during the kind of stay-at-home order, food banks are considered an essential service. So we have figured out how to get creative and have volunteers safely in our warehouse, but socially distancing. Everyone has masks. So if you're interested in able, volunteering is still a wonderful way to help out. On our website, you can find, we've got kind of a whole COVID-19 response page, and we're virtual food drive, which has seen a lot of action and has been amazing. And that virtual food drive just allows us to access a lot of the foods that have been harder to gain access to, like holes in the food system that we've seen on a grand scale. That has been really amazing. And then we also have our community meals program going on, which has really amped things up. And so getting involved with that program, and that's our hot meal feeding program. And so volunteering with that, we have been using volunteers to help actually pack and prep those meals. And that the community meals, they're serving hot meals across Winston-Salem, and they've actually spread into a few other areas in Guilford and a few other of our counties. And they're like serving at recreation centers. I think I just said that, and that'll continue into the summer. So that's actually a program that pre-pandemic would have been happening in the summer anyway. And we actually, in response, were able to start it earlier than the anticipated start time. So we're kind of just moving into what, not quite in the same way, but we're kind of just preparing to move into what would have been happening anyway for summer. So definitely still focusing on kind of that weekend meal gap, as people refer to it, helping families with school-age children have food on the weekends when they normally would have had food from school. So still working on all of that, but definitely just volunteering is a huge help. Donating if you're able to donate, and just spreading the word. And if you are familiar with any of our partner agencies that are in your area, we have a lot of like food pantries and stuff that might even be in your neighborhood. They could also use a lot of assistance right now as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Chanel, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ron. And thank you, Kana and Jennifer, for your points. If we will move to the next slide, please. Awesome. So once again, we have Jennifer's contact information right here. If you have any questions about the Regional Food Council, there's also a direct link to the Piedmont Triad Regional Council's website with more information as well on the Food Council. If you have any questions about the assessment itself, we have a direct email address, as we stated earlier, community@carolinacreators.com. Also, feel free to look on our website, carolinacreators.com. And please, please, please share the survey. We have the direct link right here, publicinput.com/triadfood. This is going to be the best way for us to reach out to our community in this current time while we're unable to do the face-to-face in-person meetings. We want to make sure that we're connecting with our community. So please share that link if possible. You're also feel free to leave comments by phone by calling 855-925-2801 and enter the project code 8784. So those comments can be left in whatever language that you speak that can be translated. So feel free to add your comments. Next slide. All right, so once again, we have Jennifer's contact information, and we also have Kana's contact information. Is there anything else that you all would like to share before we move forward? No? All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you, Kana with Second Harvest Food Bank and Jennifer with the PTRC Regional Planning Department. Thank you all for participating in this conference today. Please continue to fill out the survey, continue to participate in the mapping activity. Y'all, it's a day. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to reading all of your comments and suggestions. Thank you so much.